What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for Sports, all right? So this is a response video to Town Biz, all right? And if you're not subscribed to his channel, please subscribe to Town Biz Sports Media Entertainment, all right? That's his main channel. He also has some other channels as well. That's his main channel. Please subscribe to him and support his platform. And he was talking about Shaq and how he felt that he should have won more than one MVP. All right, Shaq has been very vocal about that he should have won more than one MVP. And at the end of the day, you can make an argument that he should have, but then when you really look at his career, you can understand why he only won one MVP. And there's a lot of guys who haven't won an MVP, and based upon production alone, they should have gotten it. I said yesterday, Nate Tiny Archibald, if you just base it on production, should have won MVP in 1973. George Gervin, if you base it upon production, maybe he should have won MVP in 1980. If you're basing it upon just production, all right, and availability. And the thing that hurt Shaq many years was availability. And this is why I'm not here to denigrate Shaquille O'Neal. To me, Shaquille O'Neal is the second most dominant force I've seen. Well, actually, he's the most dominant force I've ever seen because I wasn't alive when Will Chamberlain played. I get that. But I've seen enough game footage and I've read enough about Will Chamberlain from those whose opinion I respect and those who watched him play and watched Shaq play and played against both of them. And the overall majority have come to the conclusion that Will Chamberlain was the most dominant player. The stats bear it out. Most metrics bear it out that he's the most dominant force we've seen. But the thing with Shaq and MVPs, all right, I want to go through his entire career. Not going to be long and drawn out, but I want to go through his career and show you why he didn't win more. Now, Shaq came into the league in what, 1992, right? 1992-93 had a great campaign, rookie campaign, averaged 23 points and I think something like almost 14 rebounds per game his rookie year. Phenomenal numbers. But the best players in the NBA at that time were Charles Barkley and Michael Jordan, right? Karl Malone. They were the ones winning. They were the ones who were established great players. And generally speaking, with very, very few historical exceptions, rookies don't win MVP. The next year, 93-94, Shaq puts up tremendous numbers. I believe he finished second in the league in scoring his second year. All right. But what overwhelms Shaq and David Robinson, who led the league in scoring that year, is Hakeem Olajuwon, who has come out of nowhere and has taken the mantle from Michael and has become the best player in the NBA. And he would be the best player in the NBA in most people's eyes the next two seasons, 1993, 1994, 1994, 1995, back-to-back championships, right? Shaq is this awesome force, but Olajuwon is the more skilled player. He's the more overall, more balanced player. Shaq isn't Shaq isn't a pushover defensively, but Hakeem Olajuwon could possibly be top 3, 4 all-time defensive player, right? The next year, David Robinson was the narrative. 62 wins, leading the league in wins, coming off that year leading the league in scoring, having another great campaign, averaging 25 and 12 or whatever. When you consider that he didn't have the greatest team around him at that time, it just showed how great a player he was. And then, of course, in the Western Conference Finals, he got eviscerated, and that overshadowed Shaq. Even though that '95 Magic team was great, the storyline was Olajuwon and David Robinson. Then the next year, '95, '96, Michael Jordan comes back. He dominates the headlines. The Bulls win 72 games. It's a no-brainer. Michael Jordan wins MVP. The next year, Karl Malone has this great campaign. He's an improved player, an improved jump shooter, an improved passer. 27 points, 11 rebounds, I think 3.5 to 4 assists per game. The Jazz win 64 games, still a franchise record. That's the narrative. They give the MVP award to Karl Malone. Now, by this time, Shaq is in LA, right? But what was the problem with Shaq at this time? He started having this bad habit of not working on his craft, not working on his body at least during the off season. He would get out of shape, come into training camp 30 pounds overweight, and then try to work his way in shape. Starting in 1995-96, Shaq had a bad habit of missing a lot of games. And you can't win the MVP if you're only playing 50, 60 games every year. In 1995-96, Shaq only played in 54 games. 1996-97, I think Shaq missed something like, 15 to 20 games. The next year, the storyline, this is Mike's last year. He held the team together with paper and glue when Pippen was gone, him and Robin. He wins the MVP award. Mike retires. So is this the time for Shaq to take over the league? Well, Shaq comes into the strike-shortened year out of shape, like half the fucking league. And that year, Karl Malone, 35 going on 36, has a dominant campaign, leads the Jazz to a 37-13 record, tied for the best record with the San Antonio Spurs. He wins his second MVP. The Lakers, by this time, and Shaq, have a reputation for being a great regular season player who keeps getting swept in the playoffs. 1994, swept out the playoffs in the first round, I think it was, by the Pacers. 95, swept in the finals by the Rockets. 96, swept in the Eastern Conference Finals by the eventual champion Chicago Bulls. Swept in 98 by the Utah Jazz. In 97, 4-1. 99, swept out the playoffs. So it's this constant thing where they kept getting swept out of the playoffs. Now, the year 2000, everything came together for Shaq. He was healthy. He was motivated. He was dominant. They won 67 games. Shaq rightfully wins the MVP award. The next year, same old thing. Shaq comes into the regular season way out of shape. I think that's the year he came in weighing 365 pounds. Plays himself into shape, but he misses 20-something games, I think, that season. And that year, 2000, 2001, the narrative was about Allen Iverson. You remember this if you were watching basketball. It's about Allen Iverson. Iverson, is 25 years old in the prime of his career. He doesn't have much help. It was just about Allen Iverson. Then he has that tremendous run. The MVP went to Allen Iverson, all right? 2001, 2002, Shaq has the same problem, comes in out of shape, missing games, playing 60-something games a year. And I think the MVP that year went to Tim Duncan, all right? The next year, 2002, 2003, the same thing. He misses games. That's the year Kobe, who supposedly is his sidekick, averaged 30 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists, 2 steals, playing with Shaq, 9 consecutive 40-point games. If anything, Kobe had a better argument for MVP than the supposed leader of the team. All right? And Shaq's laziness is starting to irritate Kobe. But by this time, Kobe has his own problems on the horizon, as we would find out, right? As we would find out. The MVP goes to Tim Duncan. The Spurs are winning. Tim Duncan is a model of consistency, blah, 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 blah. 2003, 2004. What kills the argument for Shaq winning MVP that year, they have a supposed super team. Can't give a guy an MVP on a team that's seen as a super team, that's playing on a super team. That's the year Shaq came in to training camp almost 400 pounds, noticeably slower. First year, you could see him slowing down. Got into shape. I think he had some issue with his foot. Had foot surgery. Wasn't the same in the finals. Got dog walked by the Pistons. Then ultimately, he's finally traded to the Miami Heat. Now there's this year that he says that he should have won the MVP, 2004, 2005. By the way, 2003, 2004, MVP is Kevin Garnett. Tremendous statistical season, 24 points, 14 rebounds, something like 2 steals, 2 blocks a game. Just awesome season. 5.5 assists, something like that. Now, Shaq could have won MVP in 2004, 2005. But there's some reasons why it didn't occur. He had a great campaign. There was a narrative there for Shaq. But Dwayne Wade wasn't just a minor partner. Dwayne Wade actually averaged more points that season than Shaq did. I think Shaq averaged something like 23 and 10. Dwayne Wade averaged like 24 points a game. This was his second year. Secondly, Steve Nash and the Phoenix Suns won 62 games that year. Okay? They were an exciting team to watch. That can't be discounted. And I'm going to say something that people on TV aren't going to say. The Malice at the Palace in November 2004 gave the NBA a super blackout. Okay? There was some concern about the league becoming too black. Remember back then, this is when everybody was wearing the baggy shorts. The NBA was becoming more hip hop. I gotta say that. I loved it. Remember, it was the Allen Iverson influence. Everybody cornrows back then, or they would come out with the blowout afro. But when the Malice at the Palace happened, and they started realizing they were hemorrhaging white fans, that's when you started seeing an influx of Euro players. And I think there was a little bit of a political as far as promoting Steve Nash. It started right around. It was politics involved with that. 2005, 2006, another year Shaq said he should have won MVP. That's bullshit. Shaq only played 59 games that year. You can't give an MVP to a guy only playing 59 games. It just almost never happens. And Dwayne Wade clearly established himself as the best player at the time. And there were much more willing candidates and much more deserving candidates for the MVP that year, led by Kobe Bryant. If anything, Kobe should have won MVP in 2005, 2006. He played literally, really with a bunch of bums. You always hear LeBron James, Dick Lick say that for 07. No, Kobe the year before really played with a bunch of bums, averaged 35.4 points per game during a season when he only averaged 99 points, when the league average was just 97. 97! 97! Kobe had, statistically, the greatest offensive year for any player in the history of the game. And if it wasn't for Kobe, a team that won 45 games probably wouldn't have won 20. Kobe should have won 20. But there's other guys that are more deserving. Dirk Nowitzki had a better season. LeBron James had a better season. I think Tracy McGrady had a better season. Elton Brand had a better season. Matter of fact, Shaq didn't even finish top 10 in MVP voting back then. So, in conclusion, all of this shit is just revisionist history when it comes to Shaq, man. Like I keep trying to tell people, Shaq was dominant, but this guy never led the league in rebounding. He never led the league in blocks. Shaq had 3 or 4 50-point games. He was not as dominant as I like to remember. Yes, he was dominant, but not as dominant as we want him to be in our mind. Look who in the finals when he was dominating. He played a broken down ass Rick Smith, who was in the last of his career. Those finals games were the last games of Rick Smith's career. Then he went against Jason Collins, who came out several years later, against Todd McCullough. 2 years in a row, Todd McCullough. But he's supposed to be the most dominant out of here, man. And when he was playing against great centers, he got his ass kicked all the time. Great player, man, but nah.